Hello and welcome back to Council Island, your go-to source for all the happenings down at City Hall here in Calgary. Today, I'm your host, Alex Williams, and I'm joined by Denis Robinson. How are you doing, Denis?
Pretty good. Was just out door knocking for one of the Pro Canada campaigns, and hey, everybody in Calgary wants to stay in Canada, so that's been good to hear.
That is good to hear. That is very nice. I think most people are in agreement on that. And one thing that most people are also in agreement on is that we need the green line, and we needed it yesterday, and it should have been done a long time ago. Denis, we're gonna flip the table a little bit here, since I'm more of the transit guy, you're more the housing guy. So I'm gonna yap a little bit, but I'll let you tell me where should I start.
Yeah, so I don't know a ton about the Green Line other than it seems good, and I'd like to be able to take the train up Center Street one day. Uh, my understanding is that they're building it down south, and there's some confusion about the downtown. So what are they trying to do with the downtown? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so basically where we're at right now, to give people some background to catch you up, we had the Green Line plan. It was approved, then it was not approved. Then the province wanted to take a second look, and then 2 years later, they're like, "Oh yeah, actually, sorry, we never got to that. It's fine. Go ahead with it." And then the province is like, "Well, actually, we do want to take a second look." And then they said, "Let's do it overground. Let's do it elevated through downtown as opposed to underground," which is hilarious because we had already started relocating utilities and doing a ton of construction downtown, which I'm sure the businesses and people who live there and commute there didn't really appreciate all of that construction, and probably didn't appreciate all that construction now just not mattering, I guess, because we were going to go elevated. And then the city was like, okay, actually, we can only afford to do this small little stretch of downtown. And then the province said, actually, that's when they changed it to elevated, is when the province said, we're going to go further. And the reason that we can go farther is because we're doing it elevated. Whole thing. Anyways, the Green Line team gives an update to City Council this past week, and one of the biggest things that they brought up was that people aren't in love with the elevated alignment, and by people I mean particularly the businesses and the stakeholders that were involved in the engagement. Calgarians broadly are fine with the elevated engagement. Few people are stoked about it, but at least most people are fine with it. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. Um, I'm getting a little bit of echo from you. I'm just muting you, Denis, just so that you know when you talk again, you have to unmute. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now. And then the city council, they said anything's back on the table. What if we looked at other alignments, because the businesses in the area don't like the elevated alignment that was chosen? Well, of course they don't like it. They're going to be affected by the construction, right? And so now we're going to look at other elevated alignments and other underground alignments, perhaps, or going back to the underground alignment. But if you recall, the provincial funding for this project is dependent on it being elevated through downtown. The province won't fund an underground alignment, and the federal government won't fund a project that is not also got the funding from the province. And so if the province pulls out because we decided actually we don't want to do that, then the federal government pulls out. And we've already started construction. Construction is happening on this project. And so it's a whole kind of mess. I don't think city council knows what they're doing with it. I don't think the province really understands or appreciates what's happening with it. And the federal government's probably thinking they've got bigger fish to fry right now. So they're probably not paying all that much attention. But is that a decent catch up to where we're at now, Denis?
Yeah, I think so. And tell me a bit more about are there different paths? Are there different like tracks the elevated line could go, like different streets it could go on?
I mean, probably. I haven't, I'm not a transportation engineer. I haven't done the look at where else it could go. As far as I know, the two options are the alignment that the elevated alignment that is kind of currently proposed, and the underground alignment that was previously proposed. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways you could do it. You could knock down buildings for it if you like, but it's a matter of cost and a matter of getting people to where they want to go. Right? You could do an elevated alignment around downtown, over top of the river, and I don't know, maybe that would make the businesses along there happier because they're not being affected by the construction. This is the problem. At some point, we're just going to have to say, okay, we're building it here, and this is where we're building it, and we know that we're going to piss these 40, 50 people off, but this has to get built, because otherwise what's going to happen is, oh great, we built something from Shepherd Station at 130th Avenue to the event center, which, the event center is a place to get to, but if people are using that to commute downtown, and we can talk about, our transit system being built around the downtown commuter another time, but if that's what people are intending to use this system for, largely, then we're going to have a ridership problem, and we're going to have also a frustrating problem where somebody is, 5, 6, 7 blocks from their destination, and they get let out in the middle of a dirt field while we're waiting for Confluence Station to be built as part of the provincial rail master plan, and they have to hop on a bus to get the last little bit to their destination. Right? Like, it's we have time to figure that out, but it needs to get figured out.
Yeah, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they're building it to Shepherd but not to Seton, when Seton is where, like, Shepherd, that's the middle, like, that's an industrial area, right? Primarily?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, on the way to Shepherd, people will manage to get their, like, Ogden, Riverbend, Douglas Glen, those neighborhoods will end up having access to the train along that way. And then it goes through, it's kind of a light industrial area. It's largely offices. A lot of businesses have their offices in that area. And then 130th Ave, like Shepherd Station, is, behind a Home Depot, behind a superstore, right? Like, it's got useful things there. And having, like, I grew up in Mackenzie Town, and Shepherd Station, I would have been able to walk, not a comfortable walk, but I would have been able to walk there if I needed to.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's getting closer to some of that really dense kind of new urban area in Ward 12. Those communities like Mackenzie Town, Seton, Cranston, whatever, where there's actually the lots. The lots are smaller than in, like, the old donut area. Got more people in them, and there's actually a fair bit of missing middle and low-rise housing. So, okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And why not Center Street, though? Are there more ridership on Center Street than down on the south leg of the Green Line?
Yeah. Basically, the reason for doing it this way, where you're doing that southeast leg first, is because that's a severely underserved transit population, right? It's on the other side of Deerfoot. That section of East Calgary is less affected by the Deerfoot divide than neighborhoods, like Marlborough and neighborhoods in the Northeast. But it's still cross Deerfoot, and it still deals with some of those underserviced areas, particularly when it comes to transit. So that's part of the logic there. Whereas Center Street has transit, right? Center Street has buses. It has a ton of buses. And so that's kind of the logic, I think. But also, it's partly politics, right? You had Shane Keating fighting for the Green Line, fighting to get the Green Line down to Ward 12, right? And so that's another reason why it got sent down there, because at the time, the councillors who lived along there, particularly in Ward 4, weren't fighting for that route, for that service. So, that ties into it, of course. Can't forget the politics aspect.
Yeah, I heard Farkas and other folks kind of throwing out crazy ideas about, well, it sounded crazy, like about like all these new ways that they could kind of revamp the project. Do you think that's all talk? Do you think there's anything in there that any of these kind of brainstorming ideas that got tossed in the press that has some legs? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I'm not confident that any of the ideas are good ideas. I think they're throwing stuff at the wall, hoping that something sticks, trying to please people, trying to say, look, we fought for you. I mean, Calgary Transit Riders, we were one of the organizations that were included in the stakeholders section, right? And I think there were 40 stakeholders in that group, and we were one of the groups with the highest approval for this because our ask, we want high quality transit service that gets Calgarians from point A to point B, right? We are rather agnostic as to whether that is elevated or underground, as long as it's accessible, safe, usable, gets people to where they need to go. That's what we're looking for, and you can accomplish that whether it's elevated or underground. So we're particularly agnostic on what exactly they do. We just want it done. And I think this city council is trying to show that they're fighting for people. They're trying to win political points. They're trying to win the next election, which is still 3.5 years away. And they're doing that to the detriment of actually getting transit built. And you see this with the councillors who are along Centre Street, right? Mike Atkinson and DJ Kelly and Andrew Yule, who are waiting for this service. And they've been waiting for this service as individuals, but then also now they're waiting for the service as councillors, and they're hearing about it from their constituents and trying to get that. And the sense is that if we don't get the downtown segment done, then it's never going to go north. That's not necessarily the case, but that's what a lot of people are feeling. And so what I'm trying to advocate for a little bit now, especially after doing some engagements with Councillor Yule in his ward up in Ward 3, as well as downtown, is getting higher frequency on the max screen, like crazy high frequency, and also getting bus lanes, public utility lanes on Centre Street. Those lanes are going to be used up for the train at some point eventually. It's not like we need to hold tight to those because there, like you said, there is already high transit ridership and people that need to be served. There's already density along that corridor and density that is upcoming. And so having something that fills that gap right now, I think is pretty critical. And it can be done pretty quickly too. Like that's something that they could propose and accomplish and have like on the ballot as like, I did this for my, like that got done. And so I think that would be a significant political win and also pave the way a little bit more for the Green Line North.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you know if there's more bus ridership or car passengers like that go north-south on Centre Street in any given day? Do they count that?
Yeah, it is counted. I had the numbers somewhere at some point, but I mean, each of those buses is packed, right? Like you go stand at the stop right on the corner in like Chinatown, going up Centre Street. They're busy, and every bus that comes by it gets packed. We did one of the engagements was at the 78th Ave bus terminal, and it was busy. Like there were tons of buses coming. There were tons of people getting on and off, switching buses, going to high school, coming home. There were a lot of people coming home from work as well in the morning at that loop. And so, it's an extremely busy transit corridor, and each one of those buses is like 50 plus cars off the road.
Right. How many lanes is Centre Street?
2 each way.
2 each way. Okay.
Yeah.
So if only, right. So it's like one bus is like 50 cars. So like if only half the people were in buses, like one lane for buses, one lane for cars would just be like fair,
Yeah.
right? It would just be like equitable,
Yeah.
equal share for. Okay, interesting.
Totally justified. Like I can't think of a space, a place more justified in having like a public utility lane like that. It's needed. It's one of the busiest transit corridors in the city. It might actually be the busiest bus corridor in the city, I'd say.
Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, anything else we wanted to cover on transit, or should we jump into our housing conversation?
Yeah, I mean, it's my understanding that some of the folks who do transit advocacy in the city are going to be maybe hosting an information session at some point this summer, early in the fall, in a lead up to some of the more of the Green Line decisions to get people back on. That's being planned, right?
Yep. Yeah. There's
Okay.
a lot of transit stuff that we're working on, especially around the Green Line because of
Great.
this. So
Yeah. So people should keep an eye out for some in-person events coming up this summer or early fall to get engaged on this issue.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you can go to calgarytransitriders.ca, sign up as a Calgary Transit Rider for our newsletter. And you'll be kept apprised of all of that. But yeah, let's jump into housing, Denis. Housing is probably the thing that this city council is worst at. Um, maybe even counting just how bad they are with money. We've got all these fiscally responsible city councilors who spend thousands and thousands of dollars talking about water bottles. But what do I know? I'm not on the board of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Maybe that's what you're supposed to talk about on these sorts of boards. So I'm glad they're keeping organized and I don't know, making sure that we do or do not have water bottles. I couldn't give two shits, and I'll tell you what, most Calgarians don't either. But what we do care about is housing. People need places to live. So why don't you update us a little bit on what's going on right now with housing, where we've been, where we are, and then what's next?
Yeah. So I would say that we're not in great shape on housing. A few reasons. We repealed blanket rezoning. We've got some pretty serious business environment issues around blanket rezoning, around our permitting times, also around now uncertainty in the Alberta housing market caused by the separation referendum, which isn't helping, and it's not something the council can do much about, but it is part of the environment. I don't think we've really seen impacts of that yet, but it could ramp up. Right, it's not a good thing for the business environment of the housing market when there's this kind of like extreme political uncertainty. And council's gotten pretty inconsistent about just getting approvals through. So they are, and we've talked about this before, but they are denying LAP compliant housing developments. So what that means is, we make these local area plans where the city staff go out and they spend a few $1,000,000, like $4 or $5 million over a couple of years running these engagement sessions with a whole bunch of community members and businesses and local stakeholders. And they try to figure out what areas of this chunk of the city, it might be 5 or 7 or 8 local communities, maybe covering 80 or 100,000 people. What areas of this section does it make sense to densify more? Do we need to add a park? Do we need to change the main street? What should it look like in this area? What would be appropriate? And so, you get one of these plans, and it says, well, you could go up to 6 stories here, and it should have a bit of commercial, or 3 stories here and residential only, and make sure you're thinking about a park or a mobile pathway or like a MUP there, whatever. But then they don't change the zoning on the land for the LAPs. Right? It's just, that's the sort of high level policy direction. So then developer buys a lot, they buy a couple old houses and they come in and they say, I'd like to, it says 3 stories here. I'd like to do a 3-story, townhouse development. And they bring it to council. And this is what rezoning was supposed to fix. They weren't supposed to have to bring so many of these townhouse developments to council. You're allowed to build townhouses in these areas. You're allowed to build them, and you fill out your permits. You make sure your building's to code. You make sure you're, hitting all of the kind of contextual rules about trees and shadowing in the development permit process. and then you go and you build your thing. But now they have to go back to getting all these zoning changes. And council's not even giving them the zoning changes some of the times, even when it's compliant. And it's not really clear why. Council has been a little bit unclear about why they're doing it. So I think that creates a lot of uncertainty. So in that context, we're coming into the July 21st public hearing. And there's going to be 3 items at the public hearing. They're pretty important for housing. The first one is, it's a small development, but I think it's emblematic of a little bit of what's going on right now. It's 61 units of affordable housing at 108 Mission Road, southeast? Must be southeast. Just down in Mission there. So this is an old utility site. It's like an out-of-use NMAX building in kind of a little chunk of land that nobody really does anything with. And the city gave this to an affordable housing group, Onward Homes. They're going to build 61 units of kind of like townhousey housing, or low-rise housing, something like this. 61 units, so like fairly small development. And there are going to be some affordable housing in there. I think it's a mixed market thing, but there's going to be some amount of affordable housing in there. Great. This is exactly what we need in our city. We're supposed to be delivering 3,000 units a year. 61 is not a lot, but it's a part of it. This development has received massive local opposition. People have signed petitions. They've hired a lawyer who's like sending the city demand letters. It's not even entirely clear to me why they're frustrated. I expected to look at this lot and see it kind of like looming over some like nice detached $2 million homes, and the $2 million homeowners were. It's not even that. It's kind of like left off by itself. The things that they don't like is that they think that there'll be parking problems, which is wild, because if you need affordable housing, you cannot afford a car. So they're going to be, I think Onward Homes says they always get forced to build parking, but they have about like 20% uptake on their parking spots. So it's like, they get forced to put like 30 parking spots in, and like 7 of them are going to be filled with cars. It's like, this is not remotely close to a problem. And the other thing is they said it's going to create like problems for them turning around. And I couldn't figure out what was going on with this, but it turns out that like the back of this property backs onto this like laneway that kind of dead ends into the top of the property. And currently, people who live on that like side street, they're using the top of the property as kind of like a free private like roadway turnaround loop. You can see it on Google Maps. Like they're just like going onto this private property to make their turns rather than doing like a 3-point turn.
What was
and
the
they don't want
address
it to
for
be
this
taken.
again?
108 Mission Road.
108 Mission Road. Okay, I'm gonna pull this up.
Yeah.
And share this with folks here. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. If you're not, you'll just have to listen to Denise described audio. So this is the place, and people are turning around.
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
And you can see it's being used that way. Yeah,
exactly. And so they're I think it's in the demand letter. They say it's not safe if you take this like turnaround away from us. And first of all, this is like Calgary roads are wide. If you can't turn your car around in that section, like you probably shouldn't have a driver's license.
Well, I mean, like do a 3-point turn, right? Yeah. Like I live in a playground zone on a crescent, and people can just drive around, right? It's a loop. People can just drive around. But people still like they turn around in the middle of the road, and guess what? It's fine. Yeah. It's totally fine.
Yeah. And it's also just the sense of entitlement that you're like, you're not allowed to use your private property to do stuff because I was like using it to drive poorly. I was like, what is going on here? I could not believe it when I read this application. Because I really thought that it was going to be like this affordable housing development looming over these mansions. And now I don't have any sympathy for them. I think they should suck it up. But like, I can see why they're upset in that case, right? Mm-hmm. They just think they would rather not have it looming over their mansion and whatever. They're not too concerned about affordable housing. Fine. It's like a disagreement you're going to have sometimes. But this, like, I just don't even see it. It's not close to, like, you can see it from the map. It's not close to other houses, really. So, it doesn't make sense to me. But the other thing we've got coming up in that hearing is They're going to try to damage our CG some more. So they're going to try to make it so you can't do townhouses mid-block, and they're going to bring the units per hectare from 75 down to 60. And so I think that moves it from 8 plexes down to 6 plexes, or 4 plexes to triplexes, however you want to think about it. But that risks making it, and this is what industry I expect will tell them in that hearing, is it makes it so you cannot build RCG townhouses in Calgary anymore. It's not possible. So
It makes
even
it a
if
dead
you,
zone.
Yeah. Even if you go and do an RCG rezoning hearing and get the thing, you won't be able to. So developers will not be left with a choice. You go all the way up to HCO or MCG, or you just go to RC2 or you don't develop the lot. And so that's just going to create a gap in the housing market. It's also going to create a really weird situation where we're going to have all these existing RCG developments, hundreds of units of them, and they're just going to be now like an illegal form of housing. They'll be like this orphan form of housing you can never kind of like really recreate. So you won't even be able to make the existing neighborhoods contextual because you'll have like deleted the zone that allows you to sort of make it kind of similar or whatever. I don't care about that personally, but if the people are like, oh, the neighborhood context should fit in and be the same, well, if you have these areas that are mostly RCG, why are you destroying the zone so that it doesn't make any sense? So
Yeah,
yeah,
notably as well, the reason that RCG was chosen as the upzone zone in the first place was because it was created in 2015, I think, and then
somewhere in there, 2012,
over
I think.
time, 2012, and then over time it was modified and tweaked a little bit by council, by industry to try and find something that works. So we had this zone that was working really well, and then this city council says, well, people don't like it, so let's just make it shit. And now you're just going to have to build HGO anyways. It's just going to be like, well, nobody uses RCG. Why would you use RCG? It's dead. It's useless.
Yeah.
Which is really frustrating because, yeah, it's like not even accomplishing their goals because everybody had to go to council now again anyways to rezone things. But now they're just going to rezone to HGO. It's not even doing anything helpful, or at least helpful from the perspective of them reaching their goals.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, and I think just like the term RCG has become a bit poisoned in the discourse, which is wild, but it is what it is. The other thing they're going to do is they're going to consider making it a little bit easier to add suites to buildings. So unfortunately, when they repealed RCG, when they repealed rezoning, they sent the suite rules. So it wasn't just that like now you can't build townhouses in most places. It was that the rules for building suites around detached or semi-detached houses were the rules for the RCG zone. And now the suite rules are back to the RC1 or RC2 zone. And in fact, because rezoning, the blanket rezoning thing improves things in other ways as well, they're actually even farther back. And so it's harder to build suites than it was even before rezoning. And so there are two things that they can do to make that better. One, they can make it so that basement suites are permitted in all land uses. And then what would happen is when you want to make a basement suite, like a basement suite in an existing house is basically a renovation, right? It's not really a development permit. Like you're not laying foundation, you're not changing the structure. All you're doing is it's like a kitchen reno, right? Mostly a basement suite is you're putting in like some kitchen and plumbing so that the basement is a proper apartment. And maybe you have to widen a couple windows. The appropriate process for something like that is the same process that you get if you're doing a bathroom reno or you're putting a deck on your porch. It should be no zoning permit, no development permit, just a building permit. You just go to the building permit department and you say, like, here are the plans, here's the details. They come out and they check that you built what you said you did. So it's like the electrical safe, whatever. You're not going to blow something up, burn something down. There's like basic safety. And it's like 3 days to get this permit, and then like $100, the inspector comes out, whatever. Boom, you're done. If they don't do that, if they don't fix these problems, and I think you can do that in RC2 now, but I don't think you can do it in single detached. People who want to add a basement suite are going to have to go zone, like they're going to have to go through all the pieces of getting this, and that's a lot of paperwork. That's Realistically, then in some cases, in a lot of cases, they'll have to like hire a planner or a consultant, so they won't do it. It'll cost thousands of dollars of costs to somebody just adding a suite to their house. So that's a huge kind of imposition of additional regulatory burden. It'll mean fewer people will choose to create suites, and there'll be less access to housing. And it means that fewer people who would like a mortgage helper from a basement suite it'll be more of a barrier to them getting it. And they're also going to they've made it harder to build garage suites as well. And so what I'm hoping in this hearing is that we move more pieces of the garage suite and the secondary and the basement suite into permitted use. So all you have to do is like meet the rules, and then for a basement suite you move straight to a building permit, or for a garage suite you move straight to a development permit, because that's still like a new structure, a different structure, so you have to have a development permit for that. And I think that would be a really simple way of getting a little bit of extra density, a little bit of extra missing middle, a little bit more housing options into the neighborhoods in a way that is less politically controversial. So I'm not sure if we're quite there yet with council, but there is more interest in that method than there was in like 8-unit rezoning, that kind of thing. So I think it's something that we're gonna have to go and talk to council about, and hopefully get them to come around to our way. And I'm optimistic there.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that you're optimistic about it. I guess we'll see what we can get, both on transit and on housing. Before we wrap up here, Denis, any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this July 21st hearing is probably the most important one until the zoning bylaw. We're going to have the Calgary plan coming up later this year or early next year, but I think it's this hearing with some of these sweet pieces, and just sending a message on affordable housing that you really have to let these affordable housing projects happen. And then, kind of building up towards the zoning bylaw, which is probably next year at some point. Those will be the big decisions for council on housing, and the high impact decisions for council on housing. And I think I'll close with, I was at a council or kind of like town hall the other day, and they got some couple grumpy questions, couple confused questions. And then they got a young guy in the back he was there with 3 or 4 friends. Just say, I can't buy a house. I can't afford rent. What is going on? What are you going to do? And the counselor didn't have much of an answer for him. The counselor was able to say, and this is one of the counselors I think has been a little better on housing, but the counselor was able to say, well, I tried this, but my colleagues voted it down. And I tried that, but my colleagues voted it down. And yeah, you're right. My colleagues voted to kill housing here and kill housing here and kill housing here. And it's really frustrating. And I'm trying, and I hope and that was the best. And that was one of the counselors who I'd say is one of the 3 or 4 counselors who's actually reasonably decent on housing. And he sort of had to throw up his hands and admit, I'm trying, but this council does not want to build housing. And I am very concerned that, I still think these little things, the suites, we need to get, but I'm concerned that that's where we are with council. We have a council now that has deprioritized housing, does not want to build housing, does not care about housing, and they are going to make decisions over the next 4 years that are going to cause young people and young families to suffer for the next 3 decades. And that's a really serious problem, and I hope they change their minds, but I'm not optimistic that they will in a substantive way.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Denis.
Yeah.
As a young person, I can't wait to suffer some more. And to struggle to pay for housing some more. I've been fortunate that I do have a roof over my head, but I know a lot of young people struggle as much or more than I do. And I also don't own this roof over my head, right? That's another thing is people want to be able to settle down and put down roots and live in one place and blah, blah, blah. And, I'm sitting here being like, boy, it'd sure be nice to put up a gallery wall someday, but I don't want to damage the walls. Even though I'll probably be here for I don't know, the next 5 years at least. So that's the situation that we're in. Lots going on with housing, lots going on with transit. We hope that you'll stay tuned to Council Island. We'll have more stuff coming up. Stampede coming up in a couple weeks, so we'll have some... maybe we'll do something interesting for Stampede. I'm not sure. We'll have to figure that out. But we'll wrap us up here. Denis and I both have dinner to eat. Thanks for joining me, Denis, and we will chat with you soon.